Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're digging into an idea about power that was so revolutionary, it literally became the blueprint for modern democracy. And it all started with one guy who looked at the all-powerful kings of his day and just thought, there has to be a better way. And it really all boils down to this one simple but incredibly important question. If you give one person or one group total control, how do you stop them from abusing it? It's a puzzle, right? One that people have been trying to solve for centuries.
To really get the solution, we first have to understand the problem. So let's rewind. We're talking the 1600s and 1700s, a time called the Age of Enlightenment. This was a period where incredible new ideas were starting to crash head-on with some very, very old traditions about who gets to be in charge. I mean, you had this huge clash of ideas going on. On one side, you've got absolute monarchy. That's the system where one king or queen holds all the cards. Their power is total, and nobody questions it. But then, bubbling up on the other side, you have these radical new Enlightenment ideals. Things like, hey, maybe power should be limited, and maybe a government's job is to protect people's rights, and decisions should be based on reason, not just tradition. It was a real showdown of worldviews.
And smack in the middle of this intellectual firestorm was one man who was absolutely determined to find an answer to that big question about power. His name was Montesquieu, and he was on a quest for balance. So who was this guy? Well, Charles de Secondat, Baron de Montesquieu, he was a French lawyer, a writer, a philosopher. But the most important thing to know about him is that he lived his entire life under an absolute monarchy in France. He saw firsthand what happens when one person has all the control, and it led him to a really simple but powerful conclusion. Putting that much power in one place is always a threat to freedom.
This was it. This was the idea that drove everything for him. He was convinced that the goal shouldn't be to find a good king. The goal should be to build a system where even a bad ruler couldn't do too much damage. For him, the problem wasn't the person in charge, it was the design of the whole system.
So, what was his brilliant solution? It was an idea so profound it would change the world. He said that to protect freedom, you don't just limit power, you have to split it up. You have to divide it. He called it the separation of powers, and the concept is just beautiful in its simplicity. Instead of giving all the government's power to one king or one council or one anything, you slice it up into different independent parts. That way, no single piece of the government could ever get its hands on all the controls at once. He saw government as having three core jobs, and so he proposed three branches. First, you've got the legislative branch. Their only job is to make the laws. Think of a Congress or a parliament. Second, the executive branch. Their job is to enforce those laws. That's your president or prime minister. And finally, the judicial branch, the courts and judges, who interpret the laws and make sure they're applied fairly. 3 jobs, 3 branches. Simple. But Montesquieu was smart. He knew that just splitting power up wasn't quite enough. I mean, what's to stop one branch from just getting bigger and stronger and bossing the other two around? He needed one more layer of protection. And that layer, well, that's what we call checks and balances. This is where the real genius of the system kicks in. The idea is that each branch is given specific powers to block or check the other 2 branches. It's almost like it's designed to create a permanent tug of war, which makes it nearly impossible for any one branch to just take over. Okay, let's look at a quick example of how this all works in practice. Let's say we're making a law. Step 1, the legislative branch, like Congress, writes and passes a new bill. But wait, it's not a law yet. Step 2, the executive branch, the president, can look at that bill and either sign it or veto it, reject it completely. And even if the president does sign it, we're still not done. Step 3, later on, the judicial branch, the courts, can review that law and strike it down if they decide it's unfair or unconstitutional. See how that works? No single branch gets the final say. They're all forced to work with and against each other. Now, this wasn't just some idea that Montesquieu kept in his journal. Oh no, he wrote it all down, creating a blueprint for freedom that would go on to inspire revolutionaries and nation builders all over the world. In 1748, he published his absolute masterpiece, The Spirit of the Laws. And this book was a phenomenon. In its pages, he laid out his entire vision for a government that was designed from the ground up to be safe, balanced, and protective of its citizens. And it wasn't just about the 3 branches. He also argued that there's no single best government for everyone. He thought laws needed to reflect a country's unique culture and even its climate.
But through it all, his central theme, the one he never wavered on, was this: freedom can only exist when power is balanced. And you can draw a perfectly straight line from his book to the birth of a new nation. Think about it. He publishes his ideas in 1748. Less than 30 years later, in 1776, the American colonies declare independence. And just over 10 years after that, in 1787, America's founding fathers all get together to write a new constitution.
And what blueprint do you think they used? Montesquieu's. The entire structure of the United States government, the Congress, the President, the Supreme Court, all checking and balancing each other, it is a direct, real-world application of his theories. It's incredible. His idea became a nation.
So after all the history and all the theory, it really just comes down to this one simple, powerful, timeless truth that Montesquieu gave the world. For people to be both safe and free, power has to be balanced. Which leaves us with one last thing to think about. This idea is almost 300 years old. It was born in a world of absolute kings. So how does this old system of separated powers and checks and balances still work to protect your freedom in your life, right here and right now? That's a question definitely worth thinking about.